Hello, movie nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, the podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about The Inside Man. This is a new television series. It's like a mini-series that recently dropped, and I have a few thoughts about it, per usual. So, Inside Man, I don't know exactly how many episodes are out currently, but I have only watched the first episode of the series, and I'm not feeling it. I'm not a huge fan. This show contains quite a few people that I actually really enjoy and like, but the show itself, I don't, if that makes sense. So David Tennant is in this, Stanley Tucci, who I absolutely adore. I think he's a phenomenal actor. He is also in this, Dylan Baker, Dolly Wells, Lindsay Marshall, a lot of names that I am familiar with and have seen before. So Inside Man is kind of all about Stanley Tucci. He is a prisoner who they consult in order to help with cases. So a la Hannibal, basically, or any other television series that you've seen where they get a killer to find a killer type deal. Now, right off the bat, pretty much right out of the gate, Inside Man rubbed me the wrong way. And I am not sure if I would have felt the same or had the same opinion about Inside Man if this series had dropped prior to the Jeffrey Dahmer series that Netflix put out. But the Dahmer series just kind of messed with me a little bit. I definitely did not enjoy that. Those are real people's lives, and it felt funny. And so starting Inside Man right out of the gate, basically, the comedic relief or the person that they threw into the show to kind of give you a little chuckle is this character named Dylan, who is, I can't exactly tell you specifically what he was. He was either a serial killer or a mass murderer. It is very heavily implied that he has murdered several people, and he uses like his murdering of those people to make jokes about it. And that just instantly was like gross feeling to me, and I was not a fan. Now, if they cut Dylan, that character, completely out of it and didn't try to bring in any of that humor whatsoever and just left Stanley Tucci all on his own because he's the more serious of the two either way, I think maybe it would have landed differently for me. That being said, though, I don't think that I would have felt differently about Inside Man in general, because so basically the premise of Inside Man is we are on two sides of the pond, essentially. So Stanley Tucci and his mass murdering sidekick is in prison in the United States, and that is kind of where we see them, where we're introduced to those characters. And then on the other side of the coin, in England or Great Britain, I'm not exactly sure where it is meant to be on that other side, we have David Tennant, who plays a priest named Harry, and he is essentially the bad guy, but the way that they make him the bad guy doesn't make sense to me in any way, shape, or form. So when we see Harry, he is presented to us as obviously a preacher, somebody with a good moral compass. He seems to be very friendly and has quite a lot of friends or people that he is at least familiar with. And when we're first kind of introduced to him, we see him in kind of, I don't know exactly what it's called. I'm not familiar with the different spaces or rooms within churches, but he's kind of in this back office where there is a computer. It's where he has all of his jackets and like different things for services and things like that. And he's kind of clocking out for the day. If that's a thing that preachers do, I'm not sure exactly how that works. But while he's kind of getting ready to leave and go home, someone else that works in the church with him comes in, and it's another man who seems pretty young to me, like a younger, maybe 20s altar boy, perhaps. I'm not exactly sure what his purpose is, but he comes in and is begging David Tennant to take this flash drive of what is, I feel like pretty obvious to all parties, this flash drive of adult content. And the preacher, David Tennant, takes it and keeps it in his pocket for some unknown reason. And the whole premise of this is that this younger fellow that works in the church, his mother knows that he has a problem with said adult content, and she is like basically going to come down on him if she finds it with him again. And it struck me as a little odd that there would be a priest who would knowingly accept adult content that way in order to like stop someone from getting caught with it. In my mind, I feel like wouldn't the preacher, and maybe I just don't know because I'm not familiar with this kind of stuff, right? But I feel like a preacher would want to help that person kind of get over that addiction if it's causing issues with his mother and with his family. And now I get like adult content, everybody has the right to be able to view that. But as it turns out, when David Tennant goes home, this is going to be some spoiler stuff for the first episode. He ends up, for some reason, there is this other woman there, Janice, who is not his wife. It appears to be like a family friend. And she somehow finds this flash drive, plugs it into the laptop in his home, and notices that the adult content on this flash drive is of people that are underage, i.e., it is illegal adult content. And instead of David Tennant, who is a preacher, mind you, I don't know how many times I have to drive that point home, instead of being on the right side and saying, you know, oh, it was given to me by someone, like it's not mine, it's not my son's, we need to contact authorities, we need to do the right thing. Instead of that, he pushes this woman down the stairs and locks her in his basement. And so that is where kind of the inside man portion starts, because Stanley Tucci, who is a murderer, is going to be helping, I guess, figure out what's going on and find this woman who is now missing and being locked in a basement, right? I am not exactly sure how this show or series, I guess, is going to continue forward. As it is a TV miniseries, I would assume we are going to be having like very few episodes. But for me, this is just not a win. The story in itself just does not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me that anyone with a perceived moral compass, i.e. a preacher or someone who you maybe would trust. Like, I understand, you know, if you're giving confession or things like that, that there is that sort of line that you don't cross. You can't, you know, tell other people what someone like confesses to you or anything of that nature. But that is not the case here. He is protecting someone who very clearly has a serious sickness in my mind. And so it makes no sense to me that that would be something that he intentionally tried to protect, or wouldn't, like, at the very least tell this woman, like, I will contact the appropriate authorities, like, I will make sure something happens. Instead, he goes out of his way to actually injure her and keep her from being able to tell anyone about this evidence that he now has in his possession. So overall, I mean, I guess there are really just disgusting people out there that would hide this kind of thing, but it just seemed like such a bait and switch moment is maybe the best way that I can describe it with David Tennant's character, that you're shown him at the beginning of this episode as a very likable, very warm, very trustworthy person who then turns out to just really be a psychopath, in my opinion. Like, that's what he has to be, right? And who else is going to protect someone who's interested in underage adult content? Like, who protects someone like that? I don't get that. And so that, for me, like, again, this probably isn't just something that I want to watch, because I'm not really interested in watching a character like hurt other people in order to protect someone who is okay with hurting children. I don't know. Something about this show just in general kind of rubs me the wrong way. Again, like I said, them using a serial killer as comedic relief rubs me the wrong way. Them having this story center around a topic that is not something that I find enjoyable to watch on TV, it's just a lose on both sides for me. So there are multiple reasons why I just don't feel like this is something that I would enjoy watching moving forward. But again, it hurts my feelings really that that's the case, because I enjoy David Tennant. I like his content. I like a lot of the movies and television series that I've seen him in. I love Stanley Tucci. So it's just strange to me that I'm very much, for the cast, but very much against the television series in general. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.